Heritage, Avon, AutoZone, Best Buy, Colgate, Coach, Dollar Tree, SD Lauder, Fastenal. I have no idea what they do. Family Dollar. I'm going to call it Fossil Group. Again, don't know what they do. Gap, Granger, Kroger, Lorillard. Don't know what the heck they do either.
Cigarettes.
All right. Limited Brands. Mead Johnson Nutrition, Monster Beverage, PetSmart, Grabber Half, Ralph Lauren, Ross Stores, Shore & Williams, TJX, Whole Foods. Okay?
Yeah, but consumer products.
Yep. Right now it's very heavily oriented toward consumer products. And you're absolutely correct. Okay, you're looking at gross profits and you're looking at companies that don't have a large asset base, that is working to get the asset base down. So you're absolutely correct. Okay, so that's what the top 25 stocks are as of the 28th.
But he did this over 30 years.
No, well, he did, the professor, okay, did it from.
Well, that's you.
Me, I did over 14.
Right, and that's
So I did over 14. And you do get a mix of different types of stock, okay? Now, there's an element of what I'll call luck here when you do them annually, you know, but, you know, statistics should take care of that when you take a look at the bell curve. Okay. So, but I did it for 14, he did it for, I think the paper came out in 2011, if I remember right. I think he started sometime in the 60s. So he did it for, I'll call it 40 plus.
But you were supposed to remove the financials.
Yeah, I was supposed to remove the financials.
That's your point.
Okay?
Well, yes, point. In my opinion, what you need to do is a system where you sort into sectors and then you assign a maximum weight to each sector so that you don't overweight.
Yep.
I mean, look how many retail outlets are there.
Very good. So I have a new action item from this meeting. Okay, and that is, what the hell, instead of doing 25 stocks, I'll do 30. I'll pick 3 stocks from each of the S&P, 10 S&P sectors. Because I can do that pretty easily.
You can actually, instead of using the screeners, if you use the simulator, then you can have a command sec weight, which does that for you to make sure
Right,
that you
so
don't.
I can do that too. And I'll use up my one and only one portfolio I get, because I got the cheap license for $500 a year.
I can do it.
Okay, so don't worry. It doesn't. I hardly ever use that top number one. In any case, there you go. Now, so I went through and I looked at the same sort of chart as before. What you got is like the S&P. You've got all 500 stocks. The benchmark made 1.6. Equal weight, all 500 made 8.1%, and the screen top 25 made 12.7. Now, what happens if you ran it on the ADRs? Okay. Well, annual only made about 5%. Excuse me, all 100 of the ADRs made 5%. Annual on the top 25 was only 2.5%. It's not a very good screen. And you can get up to 6.3% if you do it quarterly. Okay. Cubes. This was interesting. I expected the cubes not to do all that well. The cubes, all 100 rebalanced annually, is 9.2. The screen did 12.6. New York Stock Exchange. Yeah, didn't do all that well. All 500, 7%. I took, in that case, I took the top 500 off of by market cap off the New York Stock Exchange. Again, trying to look for, quote, larger cap stocks. You only got about 1.5% gain in terms of CAGR. NASDAQ, again, I picked 500 out of the NASDAQ composite and equal weighted them. That's, let's call it 5%. Top 25 annual is 11.7. You do a quarter, it's 13.9. In general, despite what the paper says, I didn't see a big gain of going to quarterly or monthly rotation and rebalance. I did not. It helped a couple of times, but the vast majority of the times, you want to stick with annual rotation.
Well, don't think you're seeing is 8% a year alpha.
Excuse me?
I don't think you're seeing is 8% a year alpha, really.
Not on these other, indices. I'm not.
Yeah. Well, again, S&P 500 over this time frame is, it's almost like a special case. I
Well,
mean, generally speaking, it's returning 7% or something over a longer time, so it's, but, I'm not convinced he's got 8% here.
yeah. Well, also inside the paper, because he does do equal weighting, as I remember. Okay, so let's just pick the S&P 500 as an easy example. Let's assume that, equal weight of the S&P 500 is 8%. You get 12, you're really in and out for about 4% plus per year. So inside his paper, he's mixing several factors together. He's mixing the rebalance factor and the equal weight factor with the screen factor. And this kind of draws it out in all these cases. In terms of, here's what you get, equal weight, rotation, versus here's what you get in screen.
The S&P 500 is that include dividends?
All these should include dividends. Well, that's what portfolio 1, 2, 3 states. And a few times when I've checked it, I saw the dividends, but dividends give databases and people so many problems, and tools so many problems that I'm always, but they should include, yes.
So if you use SPY instead of the S&P 500, dividends would be included, right?
That is correct.
Because dividends were like 2% all these years, weren't they?
Pardon?
Weren't dividends about 2% for the S&P 500?
2 or 3 years.
This is somewhere between 1 and 2.5% over. And as you go back to the 90s, they were more normal, 3-ish. Currently what, in the 2% range, I think, or something like that. Okay, let's see. Cubes did fairly well. New York Stock Exchange, maybe not so well. NASDAQ we covered. Mid caps, balancing, just rotating annually is 10%. It's got it up to 13. So you've seen about 3% gains. And small caps saw 10.6% annual rotation. If you do an annual rotation, you actually drop off to 9.3. But if you do quarterly rotation, it goes to 12.2. So there's a few cases in here where rotating or rebalancing more often actually helped. Okay,
Al, by rotating, you mean choosing another 25 stocks?
yes. Okay. Let's see. So this is the sector portion, i.e. I did the indices, some of which should not have worked, okay, because they were small caps and so on, or unsure whether they should have worked. I'm not going to do the 10 S&P sectors. This is what the screen looks like again. Liquidity check, in this case I was looking at the materials sector, and then the ranking set. So it's a bigger screen, but that's just because I included all the sectors in the screen, and I turned most of them off. Here's the materials sector. S&P did 1.5. The materials sector, the red line, rotated annually does 15%. You may remember that the material sector was the one that did horribly on the retail screen. Here, it's doing wonderful. All right, summary chart. There's going to be 2 of them. In the interest of time, I'm not going to go through this in depth here. Let me, I'll look at materials here. All stocks in the materials sector were 10.7%. The top 25 with the retail screen was 9.5%. The top 25 by the OSV screen was 15%. So OSV, quote, won the race. Let me see if I can pick one out where it lost the race. I think
Energy.
Energy. Energy, all stocks were at 14. Top 25 by the retail screen. 17%, good. And the OSV Screen, 11%. Okay, so it didn't do bad, but it didn't, quote, win the race between the retail screen and the OSV Screen. Okay. Next 5 sectors, let's take a look at the, okay, let's look at telecom. Overall, telecom did 2.8%. The top 25, the retail screen did 7.1. This did, OSV did 0.2%. It was horrible on telecom. Horrible. Okay? So it doesn't work all the time. Oh, the one sector, where's financials? There's financials. The one sector I'm not supposed to apply this to. Okay. You rotate all the financials, it's 7.5. The retail screen comes up with 9.8. OSV comes up with 12.3. Okay? So I'm not supposed to do that, but it seems to make some money. All right. Again, looking at the clock, summary. In general, the screen seems to live up to its rep. In terms of just, effectively, all I'm doing is sorting on gross profit divided by total assets. And as you pointed out, all that means is you're looking for very profitable companies, i.e. they're making a ton of money at a gross profit level that don't have much assets. Geez, software companies sound like this, okay? Because they typically don't necessarily have a lot of assets, though you can look at Apple and say they got 100 billion on their sheet. Okay, so that's a fair amount of assets. Okay. On indices, works great on some, on a good number, works okay on even the stuff that's not supposed to work on, like small cap. And so my viewpoint is, why stress? You can run this on the S&P 500, just like the paper says, and you can make a fair amount of money. Okay. Guess what tracking folio I'm going to create this month? Now take a wild guess. I'm going to pick the top 25 by this and track it with the S&P 500. And everything that John said, you know, about controlling for volatility, using StormGuard for timing and so on, I will also do to make that number better. But
There's going to be another $10 for the full.
pardon?
There's another $10 for the full.
I'm so confident on this, I'm going to put $20. Okay, sky's the limit in terms of the money. $20, no problem. I'm willing to take donations, by the way, no problem. S&P sectors, it beat the retail screen in 5 and 10, came close in 2, beat the all-stock variation in 8 out of the 10. And basically, between the 2 screens, by choosing one of the 2 screens, you can come up with a winner in every sector. Okay, i.e. something that trounces Fidelity, trounces the all stocks for each sector. So I have to fill in the rest of the table. I now have to, another item that I'll try and remember to do, please send me an email so I won't forget, because I will forget. Do the whole sector weighting thing for the S&P 500, so, and take financials out, okay? Well, 3 from each sector and sector weighting. And just say sector weighting in the S&P 500, and I'll be good. Sector weighting in the S&P 500 and remove financials. Okay, and I'll do that and see. We can maybe come up with OSV too that'll even make more money. Okay. Let's see. And with that, yes, we're done. So, any questions about the screens? Anything tonight? Going once, going twice. That's it.